Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
What are you using that for? I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi friends, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen That? A movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. I'm your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome back to our season 3 premiere.
Woohoo! Are we considered a long-running podcast now that we've hit season 3?
I don't know. That's kind of crazy, though. I was literally, as it was coming out of my mouth, I was like, that's literally insane to think this is our third year doing it.
This is wonderful.
We hope that you all enjoyed the Oscars. If you didn't listen to our predictions episode, you can go back and see how terribly we did. Well, you know, some of us did worse than others. It's fine.
Wow. I voted too much with my heart and not enough with my head.
And I was including myself in that too. So it wasn't just targeted at you.
This is the problem. When I didn't used to see as many movies, I could be more objective. And now I see more of them and I can't be anymore.
Yes. Hopefully you all have had the opportunity to catch up and watch some movies while we've been on a break. Well, this week we watched The Devil Wears Prada. I'm sure Geoff will touch on this a little bit more, but there are some significant events happening in 2026 around this movie. So we decided it was about time Ben watches it. And stick around until the end. We'll be discussing our top 4 magazines.
The Devil Wears Prada. A young woman from the Midwest gets more than she bargained for when she moves to New York to become a writer and ends up as the assistant to the tyrannical, larger-than-life editor-in-chief of a major fashion magazine. Released in June 2006. The number one song in the country, this little song, I don't know if you guys have heard of it, it's called Hips Don't Lie.
Ooh.
By Shakira.
Shakira.
Serbia declared independence, if you want to call it that. So it was no longer Serbia and Montenegro, just Serbia. And in sports news, the Heat won their first NBA Finals. Rafael Nadal won his second French Open of what would be a long and illustrious career. And in musical news, Jersey Boys took home the Tony for Best Musical that year. Based on the 2003 novel of the same name, this movie was directed by David Frankel and stars Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Emily Blunt, Stanley Tucci, Simon Baker, and, oh yeah, Adrian Grenier, best known from Entourage. We'll always say that whenever I think of Entourage. With a $40 million budget, this movie was a massive success, grossing $326 million at the global box office. It debuted number 2 behind Superman Returns, and it finished as the number 12 movie of 2006. Did big numbers internationally. Was a big hit outside of the United States as well. This movie was fairly well received by critics, 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, 62% on Metacritic. And it had some award success, most notably at the Golden Globes, where Meryl Streep took home Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy. This movie was also nominated for Best Picture in a Musical or Comedy, and Emily Blunt was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. Both of those lost to Dreamgirls and to Jennifer Hudson, respectively. And at the Oscars, this movie was nominated for 2 Academy Awards and lost both. It was nominated for Meryl Streep in Best Actress, who lost to Helen Mirren in The Queen. This would have been her, I think, her 3rd Oscar, so I guess they didn't want to award her that yet. She now has her 3rd. And this movie was also nominated in Costume Design, which lost to Marie Antoinette, which, that's fair. Marie Antoinette, good movie, good costuming. And most notably, and the reason why we're doing this movie, there will be a sequel, The Devil Wears Prada 2, hitting theaters this weekend.
Mm-hmm. And you probably already said this and I wasn't paying attention. 20th anniversary?
Oh, yes. And it is the 20th anniversary of this movie. Duh.
You didn't say it. Yeah.
I did not say it. Good job.
Yeah. Crazy.
Thank you for catching that.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Let's talk about our background. So, Ben, give us your history with this movie.
I don't really have much. I mean, I know what it's about, and there was not a Broadway musical. There was a musical version that played in Chicago a couple years ago that I kind of followed because it starred Andrea Martin, who nope, my God, what's wrong with me? It starred Beth Level, who I really love because she was in The Drowsy Chaperone and she did a video for our show, an introduction, when we put on The Drowsy Chaperone in the midst of COVID. And so I've seen her in several things on Broadway. So I was very excited to follow her, and she was playing the Miranda role. Elton John is did the music for it as well. But it did not get great reception in Chicago. And then it has since played in the West End with Vanessa Williams as Miranda. But so far it has not come to Broadway. But I've been following that kind of trajectory, and it still may come to Broadway at some point. Anyway, so that's a long way of saying that I don't know much about the movie, but I feel like I knew a fair amount about the story and kind of the general vibe that Meryl Streep was giving off in this movie. And so I feel like it's one of those ones where nothing really shocked me with the dynamics of the movie. I just had never seen it.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right, Geoff, what about you?
So it had been years since I had seen this movie. This was definitely something that I probably caught on and off on TV for years and knew it because of the memorable characters of it in terms of maybe specific clips that I had seen online, what have you. And I feel like the image of Miranda Priestley, that's all I can think of when I think of Meryl Streep, which is unfair because Meryl Streep has had such a long and illustrious career and has done such amazing things. I'm just like, no, the first thing I think of is Miranda Priestley. That's it. So she is probably the main thing that I have just had seared in my brain when thinking about this movie. Didn't remember much of the plot details per se when we fired this up, but yeah, so not a huge history with this one.
Gotcha. Yeah, this kind of felt like a first time watch because it had been so long since I'd seen it. I probably saw it somewhere between 2006 and 2009, around when it came out. So it had been a while. And, I remembered the very bare bones basics of the plot, but that was about it. So it was almost like a first time watch. All right, Geoff, why don't you give us your score?
Oh boy, you're putting me on the spot right off the bat. Season 3. Okay. This movie was a very up and down movie for me. I think whenever Miranda is on screen, the movie excels. I think whenever Nigel is on screen, the movie excels. I didn't love much else. Not going to say that. I don't think the rest of the movie really fits that standard. Kind of fits a very cliche image of maybe New York City or the young adult working experience of this time. All in all, I did enjoy it, but it's an okay movie. I would probably put it at a 3.5.
All right. What about you, Ben?
I really liked this more than I thought I was going to. I assumed that, I would like Meryl Streep, and I always like Anne Hathaway too. So I was like, I'll like them, but don't care that much about like the fashion industry. So I wasn't like super into thinking I'd really like it, but I really did. I have some, critiques of it, which we'll get to, but as far as just straight enjoyment, this is pretty high up there on my just straight enjoyment list of things we've done for this podcast. Like I really was I just enjoyed watching it. I just enjoyed sitting and watching it without much of like, oh, when is this going to be over? Or when, so it was just like a very feel good, enjoyable watch. I don't think it's like one of the greatest movies we've ever done for the podcast in terms of artistic achievement, but I think it's super watchable. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
Nice.
Wow. That's very high for you.
Yeah.
Similarly, I really enjoyed this movie. I know that this is not a rom-com, so I know this is not like fair, but in my mind, I categorize it with all the other like early 2000s rom-com type movies.
All the same like
everything,
right?
And feels to that as like,
yeah, even though it like has very little focus on romantic,
right,
prospects, which is I appreciate. But having said that, so obviously I feel like the rom-coms of the 2000s generally have a lower, I mean, people enjoy watching them because they're nostalgic, but they're like not that great. But I feel like this movie stood above those ones of like, okay, this pretty well like holds up and is still very enjoyable to watch. It's not really like super cringy in any aspect. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a 3.75.
Nice.
Yeah.
Starting off the new season swinging.
Yeah.
I figured it would be a pretty popular amongst us.
Yeah. It's so unbelievable seeing like the Miranda Andy dynamic at work when it gets really ramped up, especially when she first gets in that office early on. It is really, really, it is exciting to watch and see play out, especially as her character, as Andy's character develops throughout the movie. It is very, very fun. I can understand why this is so memorable and why this is probably up there, even though she didn't win the Oscar for it. This is up there in Meryl Streep's performances for sure.
Yeah. And if I can just like, sometimes Meryl Streep is a little too much for me. Examples being Big Little Lies, definitely Into the Woods, and Only Murders in the Building. Like there's a couple times where I'm like, she irritates me a little bit. I feel like I might feel that way about Mamma Mia too, which I haven't seen, but this is like her being larger than life and really excelling at it. Like she is so good in this movie. And I read afterwards that like they didn't want her originally. They were like going after people like Michelle Pfeiffer and forget who else was listed. But I think, and the reason was they didn't think that, Glenn Close, which you can see either of those doing that for sure. And the reason was they didn't think that Meryl Streep could be funny enough. But she really, I think she's excellent in this. And it's, this isn't the kind of movie that gets a lead actress Oscar nomination.
No,
absolutely. So like the fact that she got it is deserved because she really is so good in this.
Definitely. And honestly, I used to think that she was so old in this. And like, obviously it's just because she has gray hair, right? And
she looks like, the same in the new trailer.
I know. I'm like, oh my goodness. I used to think she was so old. And it's like now, no, she wasn't. She was, I mean, I don't know how old she was, but her, late?
Probably 50.
Early 50s, maybe?
Yeah. Like, she was born in 1949. So, yeah, mid 50s.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So she was, I don't know. And in my mind, I was like, oh, she's like 70, 80. But dang, I mean, she still looked good for being in her 50s.
Now, anyway. I mean, she literally hasn't changed if you watch the trailer.
That's true.
Yeah.
At least in this part. She's
changed a little teeny. I mean, obviously you can see she's got more wrinkles and stuff. But yeah, like she looks mostly the same.
If she looks good for 50-something, she looks really good for 70-something now.
It's honestly a little bit disturbing. Like how, like her and Anne Hathaway, like how they kind of look like they haven't aged in 20 years.
Yeah.
I will say Emily Blunt, not trying to exclude her, she also looks like she hasn't aged. I appreciate that they gave her a glow up. And by glow up, I mean they just let her be how she is.
They removed the eyeshadow. They just got rid of the eyeshadow. That was it.
The eyeshadow and the hair were
so
just
2000s.
So 2000s.
Yeah. Not a great look for her or anyone probably. I would like to see someone who could pull off that.
I just, I feel like we're going to talk a lot about Meryl Streep and all the lines and things she does in this, but there were times where I was like, I just wish I could be that person. Because like where she was like, please bore someone else with your questions. I was like, that's what I want to say so often in my life.
Like, the dream in corporate America is to get to that stage. Be like, bore someone else.
Or when she's like, take a chance, hire the smart fat girl. Like it's just like so like the way she just delivers these lines, and they're all kind of delivered the same, but they're done so well. Like they're
yeah, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me.
She also reminded me of my 2-year-old when Anne Hathaway ran around the city to get the steak, and then she's like, "What's that? I don't want that." That's how a 2-year-old operates with food. Like,
that is absolutely.
You cook it up. You like run to the store. You cook it up. You give it to them. They're like, "I don't want this."
They're like,
It was
what?
so good.
That was 15 minutes ago me, and they were very different than present me, who doesn't know what this is, doesn't want it. I will say this is like yet again another movie where people try to tell us that Anne Hathaway is not pretty and
I
that
thought
she
the
needs a
same
glow
thing.
up.
Okay.
I mean, at least in Princess Diaries, they like make her look somewhat nerdy. Like this,
Right.
I'm like, she is very attractive from the get go in this movie.
She says the line, quote, "I'm not skinny or glamorous." And I'm like, okay, Anne Hathaway, sure. Whatever you say.
Yep, I thought the same thing. I was like, they already tried to pull this on Princess Diaries.
Yep.
Not gonna work.
Does not work.
She's like it's like Hollywood's version of ugly is Anne Hathaway, apparently.
I mean, yeah, I think that's what they
Yeah.
think.
Talking about how she's a size 6 and from or whatever. I'm like, stop it.
Yeah. Everything that has to do with like size and weight and appearance in this movie has obviously aged the worst out of anything. But also they are working in the fashion industry, which is like I'm
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel
positive
like
they still talk that way.
that's what I was gonna say. I feel like it doesn't age badly because it feels true to that. It doesn't feel like a 2000s sensibility. It feels like a fashion world sensibility.
Definitely.
And
I guess.
so, like,
It
to
feels
me,
like both to me.
yeah, well, yeah. I mean, to me, like when they're saying comments about appearance, like you said, I'm sure that happens every day in 2026. I don't think
Right,
that's something that was just true to back then.
I think it's more the comments with like Anne Hathaway saying she's not skinny or, just like those kinds of things that don't necessarily have anything to do with the actual fashion part of it,
But don't you think that's just, I mean, isn't that true to that industry with their models? I mean, I don't work in that industry, but I feel like commenting on the bodies of the models is probably just as common as commenting on the fashion.
Wouldn't be
yeah,
surprised.
I'm sure.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised. And we've seen obviously the rise of certain drugs coming back into the swing of things or having a spotlight more and more recently with the GLP-1s and whatever targeted around things like weight loss, even though they say they're not for weight loss, but it will always sort of be relevant, these sort of themes that the movie is exploring, especially in those sort of conversation pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And even too with like the workplace culture bit too. I think about that. I'm like, oh, that maybe hasn't aged, like the pressures from the sort of dragging assistants around to do whatever and talking down to people or making them work ridiculous hours. I'm like, there was like that hasn't aged necessarily. And then I think about it, I'm like, wait a second, actually, that is right back into the swing of things, that sort of workplace standard and culture, especially over the last year or two. So yeah, it's like, oh yeah, a lot of this has not actually aged poorly.
Yeah. There's nothing like, I think like when the most recent we did Anne Hathaway recently with Get Smart, which came out a year or two after this. And, that has like such mid 2000s gay jokes and stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like this doesn't really have that. Like,
no, it doesn't.
It holds up quite well for a 2000s comedy.
For sure. There aren't as necessarily any derogatory terms or anything like that. It's just the jokes are solid and it's all in sort of those line deliveries. And again, why Miranda or Emily or Andy are memorable characters at the end of the day.
Yeah. Also, just a little fun fact, because I mentioned who was considered for Miranda, but the Andy, they wanted Rachel McAdams.
That could work.
She turned it down several times. And then Kate Hudson was also offered it, as was Kirsten Dunst, Natalie Portman, Scarlett Johansson were all considered for the role. And I feel like most of them you can see. Rachel McAdams for sure you can see.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
It works with Anne Hathaway though. I think ultimately at the end of the day, it worked out perfectly.
And she's, obviously like going to be a second fiddle to Meryl Streep in this, but she holds her own in this movie, I feel like.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
I think she's saddled, and this gets into one of my critiques. I think the home life stuff for her, to me, is like, that's my biggest critique of the movie. Like, it's just not that interesting, and it feels like kind of like we've seen that done in better ways. And also, I don't know how you guys feel about this, and I'm curious how you feel about this, because I feel like there's some vibes of like to me, there's a little bit of a vibe of like Mean Girls in it, where like you start as the outsider and then become one of them kind of thing. But I feel, and maybe you two feel differently, I feel like Anne Hathaway's character doesn't actually really become that bad ever. Like, she doesn't seem like she becomes one of them. She seems like she's just, advancing her career, but not in like, and I didn't even take it to mean like when she kind of screws over Emily Blunt's character. Like, I don't know. I didn't feel like, it doesn't feel like Lindsay Lohan joining the Plastics. Like, it didn't feel like she lost her sense of self over it. It kind of felt like, if anything, like her boyfriend was being a little unreasonable about things.
That is my biggest personal critique with the movie, is the friend group, quote unquote friend group, Andy has outside of the work life. I'm like, you guys are all young adults in New York City. You open art galleries, you talk about it's sort of understood that, her boyfriend is a chef and going to be a sous chef in Boston, as we find out at the end of the movie, or that her other friend is clearly has some sort of connections within, the business world there in New York City. Why are they getting so annoyed and mad at her for working ridiculous hours? Like, what are we like? That's like, yes, if they had just ho hum jobs or whatever outside of this, like they would understand her working ridiculous hours, her working her way up the corporate ladder. They would understand that, yes, whatever she might think, like, oh, this is ridiculous or whatever. But if she explained herself, it's like, yeah, I get it.
Right. And they make her feel bad about it instead of like, and then I feel like the movie almost is trying to make a comment on it. Like, she's lost her sense of who she is, but I don't feel like that's really what's portrayed.
If anything, it's that she's outgrown, I don't want to say outgrown her friends, but like moved past her friends. And that it's time to find new circles. So, which, and how it resolves at the end of the movie, we can get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I found that to be very, very frustrating, especially her boyfriend, who Nate sucks. I'm just going to say that right there. Nate sucks. If we were going to do the Indy Marion scale, pretty sure that's going to be on the lower end of things, in my opinion. Dude stinks.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I almost wonder if in the book, maybe Andy's character like did lose herself more, and they just couldn't tie it in. Who knows? Maybe not. But
or maybe
I agree with you both.
Anne Hathaway's so darn likable.
Yeah, that's true. But no, I agree with you. It's like she just started like doing her hair better and wearing more fashionable clothes, which I was like, where'd she get the money for those clothes? Because supposedly they're paying her nothing, and yet she's wearing very nice clothes.
Or is Nigel just taking everything out of their wardrobe and just giving it to her? That. It's like, isn't that?
He said they had like nothing that fit a size 6. So
that's fair. One other point too with the relationships thing, like, why is her dad annoyed with her? The one time we see her dad, he's like, why do you have to take this work call? Why do you have to do this? I'm like, brother, you're a lawyer. You wanted your daughter to go into these advanced careers. Don't you want her like committed to the grind? I don't know.
Because it's fashion. And he's like, why are you even doing this? And then like, why are you spending so much time doing fashion and letting it consume yourself? I don't know.
Yeah. That was the biggest thing I bumped on in the movie. I was like Anne Hathaway's being made out to be a bad guy, and she's not.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I'm gonna bash Adrian Grenier a little bit more. Vinny Chase is my least favorite part of Entourage, of the kind of core characters of that show. So naturally, when I'm like, oh, he's the worst part of this too. Great.
Now, is he Nate or the other guy?
He's Nate.
Oh, okay.
The other guy is Simon Baker, aka The Mentalist.
I was gonna say The Mentalist. Yeah,
The Mentalist.
You said that the other day when we watched it. I don't know who that is.
It's a TV show.
CBS show. Simon Baker.
He was a magician.
No, he was a detective, right?
Yeah, it was like one of those like
it was
one of those like he solves crimes, but here's his quirk kind of thing.
Everyone's gotta have a quirk.
Yeah. The Sherlock Holmes knockoff.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, before we move away from the friend group, I just want to give a quick shout out to Joanne from Rent, who was one of her friends. I was
Boo.
like, Joanne. Thinking about
Boo.
her. She dumped Maureen, but she's still living in New York City.
No AIDS for her.
Oh my God.
No AIDS. No. She didn't really, I don't think she had to worry about that. That was not in her sphere. She didn't do drugs. She's like a successful lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She's the only person who can actually pay rent in Rent.
Yeah, really. Seriously.
So naturally, all of her loser friends mooch off her and whatever. And
yeah, that's why she's like, ugh, Andy, get out of here. That was rude though. Andy like gave her a how expensive purse, like $1,500 purse.
Yeah.
And then she had to go to work and they're like, we hate you. It's
Yeah.
like she just gave you $3,000 worth of free crap. Anyways, we can move on from that.
And she was just like, she was trying her best, like that night that she had to go to the, and she doesn't even do anything with Simon Baker until they're broken up, like, I don't know. Justice for Andy. It's okay. She was doing what she had to do.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, Emily, Andrea.
I mean, to try to get
justice for all of them.
to try to get the manuscript for Harry Potter 7 and having to pull all of those strings, like, yeah, of course you got to do whatever you got to do.
Yeah, I definitely forgot Harry Potter had such a large section of this movie.
Have you seen the trailer where they refer to her as one of the Emilys? The new trailer?
The new one? Yes. Yeah. One of the Emilys. I was like, I think that because obviously I saw the trailer for the second one before we watched this. And I was like, I think that's why I was really confused and couldn't remember what Anne Hathaway's character's name was because people call her.
Well, then it's
Emily.
Also Emily Blunt, which I think makes it extra confusing.
Right. So it's Emily, Andy, Andrea. She says her name like both ways.
Can we also talk about the fact that Emily Blunt is cast as a character named Emily, whose main personality type is being blunt? Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes. I hear you though, Amanda.
Very true.
Oh, my favorite sight gag in the whole movie was when she's in that montage when Miranda's coming in and dropping the coat off and saying she needs this and that and this and that. And then at one point she's like talking about how she needs boogie boards. And then it cuts to Anne Hathaway running through the streets. And she's like, something, and then she's like, oh, I'm sorry. And then it cuts to her with this giant boogie board in the middle of Manhattan.
I like at one point.
That's a good visual.
There was another point where she was asked to like pick up someone from somewhere. And she's like, who's that? And it was like Miranda's dog. And she's running around New York City with this dog and a bunch of other things. I'm like, this is great.
I also was like, just waiting, and then it inevitably happened, and it did happen in the sequels trailer. I was like, when are they going to play Vogue in the soundtrack?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 100% chance that song is in the soundtrack.
Yep.
The teaser for the second movie was just that song playing, and Anne Hathaway's. It was like a shot of her feet as her heels were clacking down the hallway on beat with Vogue. Which is pretty awesome, I think. But speaking of related to what you were talking about, Ben, I love that in typical 2000s fashion, there are many music montages.
Yes. So many.
In this movie. I love a music montage. I don't even care. Bring them back. Justice for music montages.
You can't have a 2000s movie, especially one set in New York City, to one after our protagonist breaks up with their romantic partner and moodily walks through New York City with emo music playing in the background. It's like that just has to happen, or some acoustic rock thing going on. Like, yeah, of course.
How else can you convey the emotions?
Joe.
Mm-hmm. I think they did a good job with that as well. Speaking of those sort of music montages, they did a really effective job with that at the beginning of the movie, really setting the tone for who Andy is and the world that she is about to enter.
Yes.
Very, very well done. I forget the song that played, but I was like, this is very, very effective.
I felt like that was a really good introduction to the world and her, and then all of them getting ready for Miranda's entrance was also like very effective. The storytelling just in like a short way, because I feel like even if I didn't know what was about, like I felt like I had a good enough sense of what Meryl Streep was like in this movie before I watched it, but like if I had no idea, like that sets it up well.
Oh yeah. Gird your loins.
It reminded me, I used to have a friend in high school and her dad was kind of crazy. Sorry if you hear me talk about this. You will remain nameless. Anyways, and so I forget what time he would come home from work, maybe at like 5 or something. And like 15 minutes beforehand, it was like their mom would be like, all right, 15 minutes. And everyone would like scramble to like clean up the house and like, because he was a total clean freak. And so it's like it was just a crazy, chaotic 15 minutes of people trying to scramble to clean everything before he got home. So it gave me flashbacks of that.
How do you guys feel about the kind of human moment Meryl Streep gets towards the end? Do you feel like it's necessary for the character? Where she basically is talking about her divorce. Because my hot take is I felt like it wasn't necessary.
I don't think it's necessary, but I think it allows for what happens at the end of the movie to pay off.
I was gonna say I did like how it related to like the heel turn at the end. Heel turn.
Yes.
See what I did there?
Hey. Bada bing.
End of the movie, like, because you do think, oh, maybe they're gonna work it out, and she's gonna have like a moment of clarity, and then she doesn't really, to some degree she does. I guess I felt like that helped me like it a little more. When I first watched it, I was like, I don't think we need this scene.
I think it's necessary, and I think there are a lot of elements to it as well. I think Miranda puts up an image for everybody in her life. So the one time we see her not in this image is with Andy. It's like, that's a pretty powerful moment. And it's like, hey, look, I can trust you. You're worthy of being in my company kind of deal per se. And even gets to the point where it's like, hey, I can talk about these kind of things with you, like in the car, or go over these certain situations or whatever. I feel like it was the next layer of sort of character growth. And I think they did a good job of showcasing that sort of trust and character growth in their bond throughout the movie, whether it be from small glances or using her actual name or, certain moments like that. That was just the next layer to it. So I don't think it was maybe necessary, but I think it was a good touch in terms of that next level of relationship building. Because if you don't have that, it's just workplace connections. And that's all you can see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it does give her that little bit of humanity, which I think is nice because she's not like, she is a monster, but she's not like a total psychopath, So it's like she has that moment to be human about something difficult that she's going through. So I agree with Geoff.
It also was probably the next, and this is me, I remember writing down this line from the movie that I think Nigel says to Andy at one point where he says, if your personal life goes up in smoke, start asking for a promotion. It's like, oh, hey, her top competitor is moving over to a different company. She's getting more and more power and a greater stranglehold at Runway. This just sort of kind of follows along suit with that and sort of that next stage for her maintaining her power. So that's another element to it as well.
Yeah. I feel so bad for Nigel not getting the job that he wanted.
Yeah.
Which is like, again.
And obviously he never did, if the trailer seems to.
Right?
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll get a little bit of backstory on what he's been doing for 20 years.
He left and came back. Who knows? I like Nigel, by the way. I think Stanley Tucci did a really good job with that character. I was very confused sort of initially. I didn't think there was a way that, like, when Andy started talking with Nigel sort of as a confidant, if you will, I didn't quite get that. It's like, wait, Andy trusts Nigel enough to do this, but I guess because Nigel was maybe the only person actually semi-engaging with her in a not completely disrespectful way, I was like, okay, I can actually maybe talk to you or see through the lines, or read through the lines, excuse me. But I didn't buy the initial relationship, but I think as the movie went on, it was like, yeah, I enjoyed seeing him on screen. I liked his dynamic and his character growth throughout the movie, as well as his trajectory went up with Andy's. And also he knows what he's doing too. It feels like Miranda could trust him as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Yeah. This, it's interesting too. And I'm curious how the sequel kind of grapples with this because like this feels like it took place at like the tail end of magazines really ruling the world.
Yeah.
You know, like that, like even by 2006, it was, you know, like they were starting to lose their, you know, dominance. But like you think like the 90s, like they were everything. Like the magazine industry was everything in the 90s.
Mhm.
And obviously this was like this movie and book were, you know, rumored to be based on Anna Wintour.
Anna Wintour. Yep.
And I read that like fashion industry people like would not even appear in this movie as themselves for fear of upsetting her. And like it's just interesting to think like I'm curious how like I feel like they're pushing it a little bit even in 2006. I'm curious how in 2026 they'll make it seem like someone's still that powerful, unless they're not going to. I mean, I'm curious what their angle is going to be.
Yeah. Runway's just a zine now.
Yeah.
Real. Would the editor in chief of a magazine be that profiled by E or by whatever to showing up at these red carpet events? Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah.
Yeah. I forget because I think when in the trailer they're like sitting in a boardroom and someone says Anne Hathaway's title, like what she's coming on to do, and I forget what they say her title is, but that probably has some insight into.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be thoughtful about it. It's just I don't know. It feels like such of a time when magazines ruled the world, and these editors in chiefs, especially of something like, you know, a major magazine, really just like I remember I read an article it was about I think reporters for like maybe Time or Newsweek or one of those magazines from like the 90s, and like the amount of things that they had like their expense accounts were just insane. Like it was just these things were just like printing money, you know what I mean? Like and they could just, you know, go to everything under the sun in every corner of the world. Like it's crazy how much that's changed in just a few, you know, 20 to 30 years.
Big time.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing too. I know zero about the fashion industry. Maybe they still have magazines and stuff.
I think they do more than some other magazine industries, I think. I mean, Anna Wintour just stepped down last year.
Right. But I'm saying, like, I don't know. I don't really know how the fashion industry operates. So maybe.
But I don't think it's what it was 20 years ago in terms of.
No. Yeah, like, it's one of those things, too, where it's like I'm familiar with, I still keep up to date with, like, GQ or Men's Health, but I'm consuming their stuff through other places like YouTube or whatever. Right. So they've had to adopt new things and adapt to changing technologies and what have you. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Do either of you have any final thoughts?
I do want to highlight I think one of my favorite moments of this movie that I know we haven't talked about is with Emily's character. And she grew on me as the movie went along. She, to me, felt very stereotypical at the beginning, but then I think as the movie progressed, I started to connect with her character more and more as it went along. One of my favorite moments is when she has her head in her hands as Andy is talking to her, and she goes, "You're doing a lot of this," as I'm mimicking with my hands here, "and I want you to be doing this," and closes her hand. I very, very much enjoyed that. And
again, that's me as a teacher.
Oh, absolutely. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the ending. It frustrated me. It just frustrated me. Just everything that kind of happened with how it played out. Like her going back to Nate and him becoming a chef in Boston, her being like, "Yeah, I could join you in Boston." But like she just interviewed for a job or whatever. Like it was just kind of frustrating with how that part of it played out there. It kind of gave me a real ick, but I don't know if it was a way to like find her roots or whatever, but
did she actually go with him though?
That's the thing. She started talking
it was a little unclear, but
right.
I felt like they kind of ended that of being like, yeah, no, we're going to do our own things.
He was talking about having an extra space in his new place in Boston, and he was like, "There's an extra bed, room for two or whatever." And she's like, "Yeah, I might like that," and it seemed to implicate something or talk,
I guess
suggest something.
I feel like it implicated that the door wasn't closed, but I don't think it was like she's definitely joining him there.
Right, especially because she went and interviewed for a job at
Yeah.
what was the name of the news or the publication that she went to go?
Yeah, I can't.
I don't
Whatever it
remember.
is, some whatever publication. But yeah, that was I was like, I don't like that. But I do like how
The New York
her
Mirror.
thank you, the New York Mirror. I like how her and Miranda connected at the end of the movie as
Yeah.
well. In a very appropriate way for each of them.
Mhm.
And Miranda smiled for the first time since 2001. So good for her.
Yep. Once every 5 years, I guess.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, Ben, why don't you kick us off this week with
Sure.
TV recommendations?
I have two recommendations. The first is one not so good show, one great show, but they both I feel like fit the vibe of The Devil Wears Prada. One of them is Emily in Paris, which takes place in Paris, of course, and involves a young kind of upstart going, and I believe it's a marketing firm. I don't believe it's fashion, but kind of hitting that kind of corporate world as a young professional. I think the flip thing is that Emily is like not nearly as likable as Andy in this, but it's another Emily. So there you go.
There you go.
I think the show though, to me, that has the most dynamics of Anne Hathaway and Meryl Streep in this movie is Hacks. Which has a very Miranda type character in Jean Smart's Deborah Vance. Less so with the Hannah Einbinder Anne Hathaway connection, but it's definitely like the young assistant having to do everything for this, insanely narcissistic diva. And I think the dynamics throughout the movie made me think of Deborah and Ava in Hacks many times. So
there you go.
I think it's definitely the best comparison.
Great. Thank you. Geoff, what are your movie recommendations this week?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got 3 and then a bonus one. Typically I only leave 3, but this week I got a bonus. So the first one is in the category of young woman who is aspiring for a greater career, initially not interested in the field she's going into, but grows an interest and a skill in it. Legally Blonde. What, like it's hard? Love that movie so much. The second one is an Anne Hathaway feature, as maybe she's attempting to not become like Miranda in her workplace position of power, and that would be The Intern with Robert De Niro, and where she plays the CEO at a magazine or an online fashion site, excuse me. So right there, kind of in the same lockstep universe. And then the last one is the fashion industry, and also I want to try to highlight more movies that have come out in the 2020s. So fashion industry in the 2020s, Cruella, which I'm sure quite a few people have seen, but it's a little prequel to 101 Dalmatians with Emma Stone. So she gives a great performance in that movie, and there's some really great costuming and fashion in that movie. So those would be my 3 recommendations for what's currently out. But my bonus one is just everything Anne Hathaway is going to be in 2025. As of right now, Anne Hathaway, 2026. Anne Hathaway is going to be in 5 movies in 2026. The first one, which has already come out, is Mother Mary, which has been teased for 2 years at this point, but she plays a pop star kind of going through some personal stuff. This was a drama, I think it was supposed to come out 2 years ago. The next one is Devil Wears Prada 2, which is coming out this weekend. Next one is The Odyssey, where she is playing Odysseus's wife, Penelope. So that's Christopher Nolan's follow-up to Oppenheimer. Then she's going to be in a movie called The End of Oak Street with Ewan McGregor, which seems to be a pretty trippy kind of vibey sci-fi movie. After a mysterious cosmic event rips Oak Street from suburbia and transports their neighborhood to someplace unknown, a family soon discovers that their very survival depends on them sticking together as they navigate their now unrecognizable surroundings. So it seems like a very mysterious kind of movie. And then the last one is the next Colleen Hoover adaptation, Verity, where she is going to be the co-lead in that movie with Dakota Johnson, and it looks like Josh Hartnett. So 5 feature films in 2026. So big year for Anne Hathaway.
Good for her.
She's been busy the past couple of years.
Certainly has.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay, let's move into our top 4. So we thought it was fitting that since Runway is a magazine and the pretty much focus of Andy and Miranda's jobs, we would talk about our top 4 favorite magazines.
I was initially going to suggest something fashion related, but I'm not fashionable enough to even.
I would have had trouble with that.
It would have been tough. So it'd be like put together my ideal outfit or something. I'm like, I can't do that.
Fashion brands you don't know how to say. Hermes.
That'd be a fun episode.
I mean, the amount of times I've called it Hermes over my life.
How do you spell Gabbana?
All right. Let's see. Ben, you go first today.
Okay. I have always been a big fan of magazines. I actually kind of feel a little nostalgic for the days when they were like the primary source of, people's information along with newspapers. I think we were in a better place back then than the internet. I know that's not a hot take, but
back when it was like we couldn't just get everything at our fingertips.
Right. It was presented, it was right like curated for you,
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think there's something to be said about that. So anyway, my honorable mentions, I have 3. They are Sports Illustrated, which I still read frequently online. I have not actually opened a Sports Illustrated magazine in a very long time. I guess they still have them. but I read SI's content online still regularly, especially during football season.
Mm-hmm.
Another honorable mention is Nintendo Power.
Yes,
which was great back in my Nintendo heyday of the mid to late 90s. And I especially liked where they would rank, like they'd have like the top 10 most popular of N64, Super NES, and Game Boy. And I always liked charts. Still do, to this day. So charts are always fun for me, and I always like that at the beginning of each Nintendo Power. And then my other honorable mention, I really wanted to put this in my top 4, but I felt like it was a little bit cheating because there's only one edition ever. But in 1995, Nick at Night had their 10-year anniversary. And I had started watching Nick at Night in the beginning of 1995. This was in like June of 1995. And it was a big event for their 10-year anniversary because they brought back for 1 week, 1 episode of every show they ever aired up to that point. And it was a very, very seminal moment for my childhood Nick at Night viewing. And it came with a magazine. They released a one-time only Nick at Night magazine, which I have read a gazillion times. I actually bought a new one in adulthood because the one I had from my childhood was completely destroyed from reading it so many times and writing in it and all sorts of things. So I still have my childhood one that's a real shredded mess. And then I have a nicer copy that I bought as an adult on eBay. Just, if it had done more than one issue, it would be top 4, maybe even number 1. But since it only had 1 issue, I felt like I could only put it in the honorable mention. Okay. My number 4 is Fanball, which was a fantasy football magazine back in the early 2000s. Fantasy football, of course, now is massive, but back in the 90s, I'm old enough that I was in a league with my uncle, and he would use the newspaper to score the points, and then I took over the second year, and I would use the newspaper to score the points. But every year there was a website called Fanball, and every year they would come out with, there's still fantasy football magazines that come out every year, and most of them are kind of generic, but this one was really funny. Like it would have their commentary on the players was really, really funny, full of pop culture references and jokes. And I still have them in a box in the basement, and I really enjoyed reading those, and I thought their take on it was always a good time. My number 3, I believe it went out of print in the mid 2000s. They don't do that particular one anymore.
It's so tough to publish fantasy football magazines nowadays because of how much everything changes.
This even went out of print, I think, before a lot of fantasy magazines did. But excuse me, my number 3 is Time magazine. When I was in college, I was a studious little snob, and I had Time magazine. I subscribed to it and got it sent to my college mailbox, and I read it every week and stayed up with what was going on in the world and felt very informed. And so there we go. My number 2 is Entertainment Weekly, which is, of course, kind of the magazine for anybody who was into entertainment, and pop culture in the 90s. And I had it as a subscription all the way until it stopped printing it went to what was a weekly, then it became a monthly, and then it stopped printing altogether. And I was a subscriber to the very end. And I've even bought old issues. I have boxes of old issues in my basement that I've just started to read through and categorize and stuff. And and I'll bequeath them. My son can sell them, as antiques when you know when I'm in a nursing home. But
What you guys can't see at home is that Ben is surrounded by piles and piles of
that was
magazines.
true though. That was. Do you guys remember being down in my basement when I was still
Oh,
organizing
yes.
them? I had
Yep.
these
Oh,
stacked
yes.
of Entertainment Weekly magazines. So, but I mean, my goodness, like it has everything you want for entertainment: movies, TV, music, everything else. It was the seminal one, and I wanted to put it at number one, but the one that was nearest and dearest to my heart, number one, is TV Guide.
Knew it.
Which
Yep. Called it.
which was everything I loved about Entertainment Weekly minus anything I didn't care about. And also one I have gazillions of things down in my basement. So, someday when I am what's the word, immobilized, somebody can go back and make some money off of it, hopefully. But right now they're all mine. And I really enjoy still to this day looking back at TV Guides and Entertainment Weeklies. But TV Guide, especially the fall preview issue every fall, was the magazine as a child that I obsessed over by far the most. And I got the fall preview magazines every year until recently. I don't even know if they quite do them anymore, but I was still getting them very recently, at least those, even though I hadn't been a subscriber for a long time. So anyway, yeah, I'm nostalgic for those, hence why I have piles of them in my basement.
Love it.
Fire hazard down there.
If there was a fire, I'd be like, quick, save the TV Guys. Sarah, that's what started the fire.
You're going to buy a giant fireproof safe. Your wife will be like, oh, is that for all our important documents? And you're like, the TV Guides? Yes.
Yes, it is for the important documents. Thank you for asking.
All right. Thank you for the trip down memory lane. All right, Geoff, let's hear yours.
Yeah, so I've got 4 honorable mentions. The first one is kind of a tie. I know, right? It's a tie between the Collegiate and RIT University magazine, aka 2 magazines I still get, not willingly, but still get. It's always fun to have a nice trip down memory lane to see kind of what my old classmates are doing, or in this last case with the most recent issue I got, a profile of my high school's swing choir, which I used to do. So that was fun to read about and see and understand what's going on with that. Also, Ben, shout out to what you mentioned, Nintendo magazine, PlayStation magazine for me, because every once in a while it would come with demos. So I got to play around with like demos of new games and whatnot that I never wanted to buy. So that was pretty cool. And then ESPN, the magazine. Always enjoyed getting those back when that was actually a thing and ESPN cared about journalism. And it was fun to get those sort of pieces and stuff. So shout out sports magazines. Number 4 is the one magazine that I willingly kind of subscribe to, and that's Northern Virginia Magazine. It's fun to always get a profile every month of my area and my hometown, especially when it comes to seeing things like, new restaurants or places to travel or tourism. So look, I see Amanda's like laughing over here in the corner.
I'm laughing because you phrased it as willingly subscribed to. And let me tell you all what actually happened with this magazine. One day, not too far in the past, a couple months ago, an issue showed up at our door and it said, "This is your last issue." Oh no. And it said, if you visit this website, we'll give you, I don't know, I think like 2 years free or something. And it was like, you didn't have to put in a credit card or anything. And I was like, all right, sure. But they had never sent us one before. I don't know why it was our last issue.
Yeah, we still we willingly subscribe to it. Yeah, so I enjoy reading it. Number 3 is Inside Lacrosse Magazine. I still follow their page on Instagram. I played lacrosse in high school, and I loved keeping up with all the hot trends in equipment or which teams were very popular from the college side or prospects for high school or what have you. So very fun magazine. Always, and it was one of those thick magazines too, like ESPN the magazine, where it was a very, very large display. Pages were very, very thick. So it was a good magazine to just have around and to have take up space. I liked it very much. Number 2 is another magazine I still follow and get updates for, and that's Alternative Press. I'm a scene kid at heart, and I loved reading those in high school and college, and especially with the Warped Tour coming back, they've been doing a lot more in terms of profiling that space. So it was always fun to read profiles about my new my favorite bands, check out new music. It aligned very closely with the genres that I cared about and still care about. And the number one, this was a pretty definitive number one for me. My number one is Game Informer. This was the first magazine that I ever was like, I want to subscribe to this, and my parents let me subscribe to it. So this was amazing to get those full previews of new video games that were coming out. I had recently, when I started subscribing to Game Informer, I had just gotten my PlayStation 2. So it was one of those where I was really getting into video games more and more, and to check out new games. And I could go down to Blockbuster, Family Video, and rent or read reviews or previews of what was to come. It was an awesome magazine to get. I think I still have plenty of issues saved back at my parents' house. I think the first game that I ever read about was like the Chronicles of Riddick video game adaptation based on the movies. Like, I loved those magazines so much. And I think they're bringing them back, weirdly enough. I think they went away. It was a case where they went away for a while, and they're close with GameStop, and GameStop's having its own thing. I don't know what's going on with them. And so I love Game Informers. So that's my number one.
Cool. Thank you. Good list. So, unlike both of you, I've never been too much of a magazine person. I don't yell at me. Some of the things on my list and honorable mentions are actually catalogs, not magazines.
Whoa.
Because
Yikes.
I feel like
Well,
that's what my mom used to get the most of, was like catalogs from different stores. And I love to just sit there and look through them and look at the, whatever they were
That'd be
selling.
great if we were doing top 4 catalogs.
I feel like they're magazine adjacent. Okay.
if it looks like a magazine, and it feels like a
can't-
magazine.
Look, if I can't include catalogs, I don't have a top 4. Okay.
Jeff and I can each do 4 more.
We can. I just had a whole.
I mean, look,
had
I
some I didn't
could
even say.
I could list off magazines that maybe I've read once in my life, sure. But like, fine. Like People magazine, the number one thing I'll probably pick up in a waiting room somewhere if they still have magazines in a waiting room. I don't know.
Oh, they do at my dentist's office.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't go to your dentist, so
That's fair.
anyways, just okay. Just okay.
All right.
It's fine.
Hey, you're technically the host of the podcast. It's your own rules.
It's fine. Okay. So back in the day, I used to get this catalog. It came every month. There were probably articles in there. I don't know. This was when I was in middle school. It was called CCS, which I think I read stands for California Cheapskates. It was a skateboarding magazine or catalog. And it advertised like all the different like skateboard decks you could buy and accessories and etc. And, I was a little emo punk goth girl, and I tried my hand at skateboarding for a little bit when I was in middle school. So I loved getting that catalog. That's an honorable mention. My other honorable mention is a magazine that I desperately wanted and I never actually got or read. So I feel like I can't actually include it in my top 4. But that is Nickelodeon magazine.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
I fell hook, line, and sinker for all those commercials they used to play, telling kids to get their parents on the phone and order Nickelodeon magazine. But
I got a couple of them, but we were never subscribers. But I had a couple.
Yeah.
Of them.
Yep.
Yeah. I wonder how many people they actually got to subscribe to that. But again, maybe I read like an issue or two, like here or there. I don't really remember, but I just know I really wanted it and I never actually got it. So sad for me. Number 4 is my last catalog, I promise. No, it's Avon. I used to love getting the Avon catalogs. My aunt, who's not really my aunt, sold Avon, still sells Avon to this day. Occasionally I'll find a catalog at my mom's house and I'll look through it. But I mean, I loved that they used to come with like the perfume samples, and sometimes you get like the little itty baby lipsticks that came with it too. I mean, I guess they didn't come with the catalog. They came from the rep, but whatever. My number 3 is Reader's Digest, which I hope you guys count as a real magazine.
Oh, yeah. That counts as a real magazine.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I don't know. My parents have been subscribed to that as long as I can remember. And when we moved into the house that my parents live in now, and we finally got 2 bathrooms, I would always get like the previous month's issue. So like my parents got the current month issue in their bathroom, and then I got the last month. But I used to love reading the jokes, and they always had these stories in there about like people who like shouldn't have survived weird situations and they did. And so that's what I liked reading. I didn't really like reading the like old people articles, like, 5 things you can do today to make sure you don't have a heart attack.
That'll be BuzzFeed in like 20 years.
Right.
So yeah, I liked that one. Number 2 is 17, which is probably one of the only like magazines I read on a slightly regular basis when I was a teenager. But I think I mostly liked it for like the quizzes and stuff that they would put in there. I've never been big on like following celebrities or, I don't know, hot gossip or whatever. So, but I guess 17 also used to like tell you how to. What?
Just in your personal life. The hot gossip.
No, I more liked the, tips. They would tell you how to like do your hair a certain way or, whatever. So I was more into that kind of stuff. And then my number 1 is Cosmo, which again, I don't think I ever subscribed to. I read issues every now and again, mostly for the quizzes, mostly for the tips and tricks and learning how to do different things. And I have a funny story about this. So when I was in high school, I was kind of Catholic, and I like went to they call it CYO, which I think stands for Catholic Youth Organization. I don't know. And they would have a convention every year. I can't remember what that was called. And so we would go to Buffalo, and it was like a whole weekend thing, whatever. And one year, I think I was a senior, we were in charge of hall duty one night because we were like the older kids. So, just sitting out in the hall, whatever. And my friend took a picture of us sitting in the hall, and I'm sitting in my chair with a Cosmo pulled up, and she's sitting next to me with the Bible. And this picture still exists on Facebook, and her mom commented on it back in the day and was like, "I'm so glad my baby's the one with the Bible."
Oh no.
So I love that picture. Definitely highlights our differences. No. She would have read Cosmo too. But anyways, so that's my top 4. Very not great, but it is what it is. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of The Devil Wears Prada. If you would like to watch along with us, next week we will be watching A League of Their Own. So be sure to watch that and tune in to hear our thoughts. That's a new one for both Ben and I.
And kind of me. I've seen it off and on over the years. I have never actually watched it like start to finish.
Oh, okay. Great.
There you go.
So lots of thoughts from everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review and follow us on all our social channels. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.